Wisconsin, really? That's like a 3-year.
Exactly.
Let's get the show on the road. So, it's Tuesday, January 17th, 2023, and it is exactly 5:02 according to our digital clock here. And time to call to order the regular governing board meeting of the Santa Cruz Valley Unified School District number 35. Governing board meeting. Santa Cruz Valley Unified School District 35 governing board meeting. 570 Camino Lito Galindo in Rio Rico, Arizona. Would you please stand for the pledge? And Mr. Shadler, would you lead us, please?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Susan Fobian.
Here.
Mr. Joel Kramer.
Here.
Mr. Brad Beach.
Present.
Mrs. Lourdes Vasquez.
Present.
And with myself, that makes 5 of us. We have a quorum. Mr. Google, any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
Second.
Your motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay. Any calls to the public?
No, there are no calls to the public.
Okay. Moving right along. The governing board reserves the right to move to executive session pursuant ARS 38-341-03A 3 and 4 for discussion or consultation for legal advice with its attorney. Any item listed on the agenda in person, by telephone, or electronic means. Governing board members will attend either in person or by electronic means. A copy of the board's agenda and additional information regarding the agenda can be obtained 24 hours in advance. Governing board meeting at the governing board coordinator's office located at district office 570 Camino Lito Galindo, etc. Let's see. Arizona 5648 or www.scv35.org. About us governing board. Let's see. So do I hear a motion to? Oh, just 1 second. We have to read this part too. The governing board may convene an executive session pursuant ARS 3843-03A 3 and 4 for discussion or consultation with the board's attorneys for legal advice or to consider its position and instruct its attorneys on its position regarding a proposed ADM audit settlement agreement with the Arizona Department of Education. The attorney may participate telephonically. Do I hear a motion to convene to executive session in conference room 125?
So moved.
Second. Here, a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
So passes 5-0. So you have to read the one sheet. You're nominated yet. You're the, no, you're. Okay. Do I hear a motion to reconvene in the regular session? Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay. Recommended action. Do I hear a motion to approve the ADM's audit settlement agreement with the Arizona Department of Education?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Okay, moving right along. Presentations. IT update, Mr. Stadler.
I think, go ahead and say.
I'm sorry.
You're fine. So,
On the agenda here.
Yes, I know. The board is asked for, periodic presentations and updates, and so we will be updating our IT, and I think there were some questions about, the 5-year plan that we had for improving technology and so forth. So I'm going to turn over to Mr. Shadler and Mr. Sinkle.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. To the state, we have many things, but one of his specialties is the area of educational technology. So we have a presentation. I know we have lots of information to share regarding infrastructure, security, student devices, staff devices, and the cost for all of this. Mr. Sinkor.
Good to see you, gentlemen, by the way, old colleagues and old friends. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for having me. We're going to cover different topics today, so we'll begin with slide 1, which is just not loud. I'll speak loud.
Technology.
Not sure if you can move it anymore up to you since you're tall there, Steve. I'm not sure if you can move it up anymore toward you. That might help a little bit. There we go.
There you go.
So we're going to cover different topics. Today, we're going to begin with the infrastructure. This is the back end portion of our network here. I think is the only part of the network that we really spend a lot of time on. We just at Christmas finished implementing our new wireless, which meant that we took our old wireless down. There was 5 different wireless controllers that we removed. We basically removed the entire system. And replaced the entire heartbeat and all of the wireless access points in the Bears classroom. I think there was 260 classrooms that we visited over Christmas break. And we're still kind of bringing that wireless system online as far as finishing off a few of the areas that are like not hot enough, but the system, everybody needs to come back on this day of school, and I don't think it's really realized that our system had been replaced. So we are currently working with the state of Arizona to purchase new E-Ray, a new fiber line. And one of the things that we've been trying to stress here over the years is to get ourselves all fibered up in the district. so that all of our connections are what we call scalable. And that means that we can turn them up simply by asking the vendor to turn them up. Our current internet connection is not scalable, it requires the vendor to purchase equipment. So that caused us some problems this year when we tried to update our internet there. Finally, we're going to replace at Mountain View what's called the central core, and see later on that that'll be the second from last central core to replace. Once the system is in place, we'll have all fiber from the internet to our school, that is from the outside in, and all fiber from inside the school to all the other schools. Next slide. Cybersecurity. Why is this slide up here? Because cybersecurity has become absolutely critical. I'm working with the state of Arizona, also with the company that insures us called the Trust, to basically do the best we can to prevent any kind of incidents with our network. One of the things that was troubling with us this year was that we were told from the Trust to no longer think of it as being something that you were going to try to mitigate, but also be prepared for the actual eventuality of your network being affected, and be prepared and know how to rebuild your network on a timely basis, given the fact that everything was, you have to assume that you could lose everything at any point. So we've been working with the Trust and also with the state cybersecurity task force to build a environment that's as safe as possible. We started by building out a training session for our staff for cybersecurity, and then we went back to the Trust and we installed different agents on our network to test our network and show us if there's any vulnerability in our network. We also had our staff trained to prevent phishing. Phishing is when you get an email that looks like it's legitimate, and you click on it and it installs malware or something into the network. We've been training our employees, and then along with the Trust, we test them every once in a while. We send an email out, and if they don't pass the test, then we'll be alerted to that, and then we take that employee and ask them to do another set of training. So that's something we haven't done in the past. We're really focusing on training and doing the best we can to mitigate all of the security issues that we have. Finally, the last thing that we recommended that we began pushing out this year is the multi-factor authentication, and that's where you log into a device and then your cell phone, or you have another way of authenticating, perhaps a telephone call, or you might use codes. But one way or another, you have a two-part authentication that occurs, and that will prevent someone who just knows your password from getting into your account. So we're implementing that now for all of our principals and administrative staff, and then this month here we're going to begin rolling it out to the schools. Supporting instruction for the students. Last year we wrote a grant. Our department wrote a grant twice. Wrote the grant twice because the second time we were able to include the licensing, and that saved us a lot of money. For all of our students to have the same kind of devices. So we wanted to make sure that all of our students had a touch screen, a Chromebook that could turn into a tablet. We had some students that weren't there. So this grant allowed us to take all of our Chromebooks and make them the same type of model. And then for the Chromebooks that were older that we took off the network, then we were able to take those and put them in auction and recover some funds that way. So all students now have a touch screen device, something that we didn't see happening. As soon as it did, it probably wouldn't happen as quickly without the E-rate. We also offered insurance to families so that they could mitigate their their vulnerability as far as how much they might have to pay for the device. I think it's only $27 a year, so that's really reasonable. And we've been working with, as I mentioned earlier, we've been doing auctions with our IT inventory specialist, Mr. Marsum, and he is working with the media centers to make sure that all of the old devices are taken off and removed correctly, and also that all the new devices are available to the students and are being pushed out, because E-rate will come back later on and audit us and want to see that these devices are not only in the schools, but in the hands of the students. Finally, I should say finally, we also last year we wrote a grant for Project 10 Million, which allowed us to use the monies that we would have used for ESSER. I think we had set aside a bunch of money for ESSER, but this allowed us to take that ESSER money and reallocate it through Project 10 million. We were able to get all the hotspots that we needed last year for distribution, and that saved the district about $60,000. And then finally, just to throw in there, outside of the back end of things, I've been also doing some research on applications for students, and through that, I realized that there was maybe a need or a desire for virtual reality. So we wrote a grant for that for the high school, and we're starting to push that out just this month. As a matter of fact, I met with them today. And so we have virtual reality, the ability to use virtual reality in the classroom this year. So on this next sheet, I'm going to let we'll discuss about the replacement schedule. He's the one who's crunched all these numbers for us. Alex.
Good evening. So basically, we've been working with Chromebooks these last few years since I've been in the district. And in a short amount of time, COVID helped, obviously, in a good way, I don't know, to change kind of how our classrooms look with devices. Previously, to Steve's point where he mentioned we were not having a touch screen for every student. The grant allowed us to kind of expedite that process because we had a replacement schedule already previously built that had each year we kind of had to incur some overturn of devices. What this did with the ECF grant kind of shifted it to, I guess, 2 cliffs of spending, and allows us to kind of start to see I guess the financial impact of devices in our students' hands, and we've reduced the year after year. Kind of it was like $250,000 a year each year for the next however many years, and so we kind of shifted kind of how we focus, and student devices kind of were overlapping with, as you'll see in coming slides, non-teachers and teacher devices, and it starts to help us shift the spending that happens from year to year. And also we've been able to reduce it down to about 2 to 3 makes or models. So that helps the IT department when it comes to fixing and maintaining those devices year after year, to be able to make sure that like we have a cache of parts instead of having to kind of custom and try to keep going back to the well, so to speak, and getting parts for different various makes and models. We've outfitted them in cases to ensure, try to mitigate some of the damage that incurs. And in this graph, it's not specifically stated, but we all know that especially now with the inflation that's been occurring, we try to plan, and kind of do like a compounding cost of where we're at. So this might be a very lofty projection, but I'd rather project a little higher when it comes to dollars and cents than to kind of like low and figure that the cost of a Chromebook today is going to be the same as it's going to be in 2026 or 2020.
Before we leave that, there's a couple of questions I know that Mr. Ramirez had regarding Chromebooks versus laptops, and why do we choose to utilize Chromebooks versus laptops, and the cost difference, and then also licensing, because I know that Chromebook, the lifespan is 5 years or so, or 6 days. So what the difference is with those? Because I know that was a question that Mr. Ramirez had asked me, and I said, well, we'll ask it during the presentation, because I couldn't give an answer other than knowing that we utilize Chromebooks for cost purposes, but also access to students. So if you can answer that question.
I can answer it a little bit, and I can
help.
Steve, you got one?
Sure. So when we look at
Steve, before you begin, it's 5 years on the license on a Chromebook, right?
No, the license for the Chromebooks are perpetual.
We don't have to replace those, then we can just keep going on with them. They don't go to the
Until that device dies.
cemetery or the.
When that device dies, then that license is lost. You can transfer it to the same model, but you can't transfer it to a different model. that make sense?
Yes.
So like, so if like to say I have one of the Chromebooks fails out there, I'll remove that licensing and I'll reapply it to a new one that we get. Now, I don't have to spend that $25, I think it's $35 now for the Chromebook licensing.
Let's see.
And then as far as like the difference between the Chromebook and the Windows, we see at the high school, some of the CT classes are using those Windows machines because they need that. They need to be able to do Microsoft sorts of work. But for the majority of the students, we're finding that the Chromebooks are meeting their needs. And it provides all of the resources that they need in one device. And oh my gosh, it's so much easier to manage. It has been a godsend. So I think that's why most schools are finding them to be useful, is because the ease of management of those devices translates to a lower cost of ownership.
And related to that, Mr. Ramirez, the same question will apply for teachers who when we first went down this path, we're also having Chromebooks, but we've transitioned them to laptops. And I know that's the next slide up is staff technology. And we have a different reason for having laptops for teachers. So we go on to that slide and kind of drill on this question a little bit.
Just the short and skinny of that, the superintendent told me that it costs 3 to 1 to buy say a Dell, or because of all the updating that we have to do. Is that also true?
So for every let's Microsoft device, we have to pay probably about 3 times. Well, they're about $750, maybe $800 now, depending on the day. Supply chain issues. Then you have to pay for the Microsoft licensing. Microsoft licensing is done by users each year, so it doesn't really make much difference whether or not you have 100 of those devices or 1,000, but we still pay $30,000 a year for Microsoft licensing. On top of that, we have to pay for the virus protection for that device, because virus protection is needed on Windows devices, but it is not needed on the Chromebooks. Virus protection is expensive, about $35 per client. And then finally, filtering that has to be applied to whether or not it's a Windows device or iPhone. So that part would be equal.
Yeah, so the question was 2 things, the lifespan of a laptop versus a Chromebook, and then also just the cost effectiveness, because we know that a laptop is much more expensive than a Chromebook. And that's why I was trying to explain to Mr. Ramirez just that one of the decisions from a fiscal standpoint as well as usability standpoint.
And know that when you talk about Windows, they don't live here forever either. They get to a point where, for example, Windows 7 is what that Chromebook was, or that laptop was made for. We can't use that laptop anymore because Windows 7 is no longer supported. So they also have a lifespan. Okay. So I guess we could go to the next slide here, and then we'll talk a little bit about further like after that.
Sure. So to your point about the decision for students, I know Mr. Shather alluded to it as well about the decision for Chromebooks of students. Well, we had that, I kind of had to cross that bridge with teacher technology and realize that, through COVID, that the Chromebook wasn't robust enough for our teachers to be able to conduct their lessons from home. So we kind of had to do a little quick shift. So you'll see in the well, wait, hold on, get the other point, bullet point first. We'll see in the upcoming slide the graph of kind of how like there's a couple spikes, and that was the kind of be able to make that quick change. As far as with technology, we do recently we've added a meeting where the IT department and me being a part of the TLA office meet with the site admins to be able to discuss the infrastructure questions, concerns, instructional. It's a quick way for them to connect with our 2 departments in one meeting to be able to touch base with instructional support. With our devices, we have different apps that the students use, teacher uses. How can our office support, and then like how can IT make sure those are getting off the ground, connecting to the internet, let's say. And then obviously our department, Steve moved from the South Campus to our office. So now the TLA and the IT department are kind of almost, just like lock and step with each other to be able to communicate. Which I think has definitely helped as our technology grows for our departments to be collaborating on a near daily basis. So So this is what I was referring to, there's this like spike in fiscal year 29. That's basically, through ESSER, we were able to kind of catch up, and be able to, get our teachers, in middle school especially, switched over from Chromebook, to laptop. And as you can see, kind of like there's little bumps here and there throughout the years. But those two, graphs towards the end in 29 and 31 basically represent a majority of our teaching staff. And we really try to work hard to make sure that our teachers had up to date devices. And so that was a good collaborative project with the IT department, with Mr. Marsom, especially with making sure our Destiny inventory system is clean, to be able to properly make purchases when devices are ready to sunset.
So Alex talked to you a little bit about the desktop and replacement schedule and let you know that we have that. I also wanted to keep you guys up to date on the fact that we've been working on the radio project, and we received confirmation that that project will be coming to a close here shortly as they finish off the tower. Honestly, I put on all the different types of things that I've been working on this year. I worked on the boardroom project that it looks like it's working. And I wanted to bring in let you know that I'm also the person that's responsible for all the telephones. So if you have any questions about that or concerns, I'll be the person that you could direct those questions to. Working with the security camera project as well to make sure that that is running smoothly. And of course, using E-rate and all of the other grant tools that we have to reduce the cost of wiring our high school. So I think that's it. Oh, we have one more slide for Alex.
I guess to kind of continue the conversation with our inventory. So kind of just, I'm trying to, I guess, paint a picture of where our devices are going, where the money is going into our technology goes. So we have a student amount of devices out there. We have our teachers with their devices, then all non-instructional staff. So that's support staff. You know, a lot of people in this room, those Chromebooks are part of the non-teacher replacement schedule. And as I came into this department, and we started working collaboratively with the IT department, the non-instructional funds that were available to us was $10,000 a year. And so with our clean inventory system to be able to show, and then IT department telling us what that average lifespan for a Windows device typically is, or Chromebooks for some of our support staff. We can see here in this graph that what we have in our inventory doesn't meet what the budget is available. So it's kind of like, as time goes on, technology gets more and more expensive. We hire more and more staff. And so we have to kind of like be able to be fluid with our budgets as well as best we can. Obviously, I know money's a finite thing. But just to kind of paint the picture here, and so we can see non-instructionally how we're supporting our staff year to year with the devices that they have to be able to perform their jobs as well. And then the final graph is just kind of stacking it all together to see kind of what we're talking financially when it comes to year after year spending, and seeing where our money's going each fiscal year. And so I referenced it earlier through the individual slides. We can see that if we want to say a fiscal cliff is coming in fiscal year 29, and the reasons why. With our one-to-one program, our staff getting caught up on devices, and just as you can see with the light blue bar, that's just like normal year to year with our devices for our support staff and non-instructional staff. So probably to start now, squirreling away some money. Because 2029 will be fun. So yeah.
Okay, so for the upcoming year, we're going to complete the installation of the fiber that's being put in right now. We have all of those units. It looks like that will be on schedule and be done before July 1st when it be turned up. We're going to migrate all those services over at that time during the summer. And also we have a major server upgrade coming up this year. All of our servers now have reached end of life, so we're gonna wanna upgrade those. And we're looking at doing a cloud-based system for our servers. We're always trying to think of ways so that if for any reason a server dies, we still have school. Firewall upgrade is gonna be necessary next year and it's gonna be expensive. Now, I talked earlier about bandwidth being scalable. I wanna be able to have a company where I can say, turn up the network speed and we can turn it up without any hardware. For us, we'll always have to have a hardware upgrade whenever we want to upgrade our speed. I don't want to go to a higher speed than we need because it's very expensive. Exponentially expensive per mega. For every upgrade to the, I want to say per megabit, but for every upgrade to a firewall, it gets exponentially more expensive by bandwidth. So we're going to try to make sure that we ask for what we need, but won't ask for more than what we need. So we'll be looking for a firewall upgrade. It'll be a new server, what's called a VM server, and the licensing for that. And that's out for bid right now. And that's under our 470 process. And we'll have more on that in 30 days. Finally, I'm going to replace the last of the 4 switches at CTMS. Once that is done next year, honestly, the network as it sits with the fiber connections and the 4, we can outlive something. Myself. When I say that, I mean it, because that fiber is so fat on the back end on both of those that I don't anticipate ever needing to go to a different connection after next year. So we're in that year of growth right now, and it's up. It's been an interesting year, but that's where we're going for the next year. So any questions? I'm sure you have many.
Ms. Hogan?
Actually, I have none. I thank you for the overview. I hope everything goes on that schedule that you anticipate.
Thank you.
Ms. Vasquez?
None neither.
The beach?
No, thanks, Steve, Alex, for giving us the information.
Mr. Kramer?
I do, thank you for the presentation, certainly. Mine are real quick. Hopefully what we have in the budget, some of us may not even be here at that time, but fiscal year 28-29 seems like we're gonna need $3.3 million to project for the upcoming spendings. So hopefully that is, we don't wait till 27 before we're looking at that. Whether or not we're gonna get that money. I know that's district office stuff and our CFO, but I think that's certainly important because 3.3 million in the fiscal 27-28 is to keep our technology ship going. It's certainly very important. And that's just at probably today's cost.
So, just to clarify, I noticed as the presentation was going on, I don't know, the first student graph. So the more accurate graph to look at would be the one where it's all stacked together. There was a group, sorry. The first, the student graph I noticed in mid-presentation, I realized that it needs to be shifted. Those 2 bars should be moved over. I don't know, it was my mistake when I imported this visual. So the more accurate graph to look at, to not like add up a whole bunch of numbers, would be the very last graph where it's all stacked on one another. And I'll speak to your point, Mr. Kramer, here about, so this would be the actual total cost in fiscal year 29. That was just a goof on my part that it was kicked over to 28. It should have been on 29 in that initial graph that I showed. So this is what we'll be looking at in fiscal year 29 as a cost. And what I did with the price of the devices, each individual device, year after year, I used a previous number of adjusting for inflation and basically compounded a number. So the price of a Chromebook today has been multiplied by 3.6% year after year to get us that number. So my hope is, usually what I've seen with working with Steve and CDW is that the price doesn't jump that much, but we don't know. So I'd rather forecast higher come that time. So just that clarification. I meant to say it after, during the presentation. We got to this graph, and this is the most accurate graph here. It's all stacked. So this is clearly what our expenditures are each year. So it shouldn't be
1.6.
the 3.3 what happened was is that
I
you.
was taking the two slides,
I know, I appreciate, that's why I wanted to intervene here. That was just my goof.
then I was given the wrong information.
So in that first slide, yes, it was off, but it righted the ship. That's fine. That's why I wanted to address the question.
No, I know, but I was looking at two slides, two different slides, adding those two slides up, but it was inaccurate.
1.6.
Well, I know.
Yeah, so
So,
Yeah.
so then when I look at stuff, I should just clarify it. All right. That's
I
one.
apologize for the mistake and. So, but this, we're actually looking at 1.6 and hopefully it doesn't increase by that much by 2029. So it should be either there or less.
So one of these slides shouldn't have been in here. All right. With that said, then, I know Mr. Ramirez brought up about Chromebooks, and I brought this up earlier last year. But certainly when I was down at this, when I visited the schools, I don't know if it was prior Labor Day weekend. And a couple places, and I asked them if charging the Chromebooks was a concern, and they said, yes, it is, because they don't have a lot of power charging stations where we used to, where I was at, we had, where you could put them all in and they would all charge up, where some of these classrooms do not have that. Am I wrong on that one?
We had a discussion about that, and some of the principals are probably nodding their heads back there, Megan, is we looked at several different devices that we could put in classrooms where they have multiple charging ports available. And then we approved one of those types. Schools are now free to purchase that type of device for their classrooms from their budget if they like. But we are not providing that from our.
So are we funding the schools to make these IT purchases?
Not wholesale, we're not buying, for example, 200 charging stations per classroom. The schools seem to have different needs and what's gonna work for their specific site and specific classroom. So there's a number of devices that the district doesn't pay for. Projectors would be another one, and document cameras. So what we're seeing here in terms of laptops, Chromebooks, desktops would be the primary district funded technology. Those other items we defer to the school budgets, and when they get stuck, sometimes they do a capital. If it's capital or M&O, if it's capital, they don't have a capital budget, so then they have to make a capital request. If it's an M&O item, then we ask that they take it from one of their M&O sources.
And I'm not trying to
Oh, yeah.
put one side to the other here.
No, it's all one.
I'm just trying, we're all one team here, but I was just trying to say, because I know that, and it was different sites. And I'll say Cotamundi and Rio Rico High School, where I chatted with some of those teachers, and that was their concerns, especially in the afternoon classes, where they're saying, yes, sometimes the Chromebooks are shutting down from the use, because the battery life for Chromebooks is
16 hours.
right.
So a few years back, when we first started, when we had parts and classrooms and so on, we went through a whole conversation about cord management. And there were extension cords and then the covers for the extension cords and all sorts of things. And we sort of came to the same conclusion that it just wasn't working for us to try to outfit every single classroom in every single school site with that sort of So we again identified a cord management system that we recommended and then left it up to the sites who felt they needed that to go ahead and make that purchase in their budget. And again, if it's a capital item, they don't have a capital budget, so then it does come back to the district office as a capital request.
I certainly think that's important, and hopefully the principals, you speak up about that, especially those teachers that were talking about it and they talk to you, and hopefully they're not pigtailing. Violation of OSHA little standards here of running a lot of cord. That's another concern, safety. But anyway, I'm just bringing that up because again,
Facilities make sure that we don't do
as I said, I always try to listen to the principals and the teachers, because you hear from the sites and that's what we're here for, to speak up for them. So I just wanted to bring that up. And the final thing is that I'll send it to you, Mr. Shadler, is that since I was looking at stuff this morning at the slide presentations, that's why I was looking at that. But I also found, and I'll send it to you, it's from the National Institute Standards of Technology from the Federal Department of Education. And they are having a free webinar on February 15th to exactly what you were talking about. And it's the national framework version and new to the framework of cybersecurity.
The NIST thing, NIST, NIS. Yep, I'm aware.
Of the date and everything, that's even better, because I'm glad if you would have brought that up, then I wouldn't even have to say it. Anyway, certainly I will send it over to Steve and we'll go from there, and thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Mr. Sikor, Mr.
Is there a one? Oh, so- Go ahead, Mr.
Steve. So, no, well, Mr. Verdugo already brought up my question, so I'll keep it. As I said, I just want to bring up a little housekeeping, which is that the principal should continue to be strict with regard to getting the students to check the computers in and out and keeping track of those keys. Because I know when I worked at the middle school, Ms. Vasquez can vouch for this, we were always expected to check the keys before they check them out and then check them again. So that diligence, that due diligence is really good, and it never hurts to remind teachers to do this continuously throughout the year. No matter how, whether they think they're gargantuan brains or not, it's good to remind them of that. It's kind of like. That's all I want to say, and thank you, Mr. Kramer, for that catch. And for being a good guardian of the governing board. We appreciate that. And thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation and for being true new friends, no pun intended, Mr. Bowling. Okay, moving right along. Let's see here. So superintendent's report. Verdugo.
Thank you. A few items. Welcome back. This is our first regular board meeting. I want to congratulate you for being president. Mr. Kramer, for the presidency last week. So congratulate Ms. Vasquez for being the clerk. This is our first meeting, so it's a from our organizational meeting, so I want to congratulate you on that. Also, the sports teams over the break have done some outstanding things. Just this last weekend, we were the Floyd Wells Invitational Wrestling Tournament, which is you win that, it's or even place in that, it's like bigger than the state tournament because all of the best teams on all divisions are there. And Jesse and his sister both placed the fourth and second, and then Sophia Renteria also placed fifth. So we had three top five finishes. So congratulations to those students, because it is a big, grueling tournament. And so if anybody has ever attended the Floyd Wells Invitational, it's a sight to see, and I used to work there. No offense to Mr. Beach, but that was my least favorite time of the year. Teacher there, because it's the amount of wrestlers in there.
Mine too, very hectic.
Yeah. But congratulations to those student athletes, and then both boys and girls basketball team are playing very well and moving up in the standings. The boys actually, who had been struggling most of the season, are now in first place in the region at 5-0. They won all of their games in region, so they are moving up, and want to congratulate them for all of their hard work, and just welcome all the students back from the break, and teachers, and hopefully everything was great over the holiday. But it's just my quick report. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, governing board member report. Ms. Phobia?
I don't have much. I was really happy with all the social media responses on the 100th day. And I think people came up with some very clever ways to engage the kids on that. I had talked to like a second grader 3 weeks ago, and I said, "Are you looking forward to that 100th day?" And he said, "We already had it." I thought, see, every day is special sometimes. The days just roll on. And I was pretty excited to see we got a new bus. Because buses are always our issue, and they're breaking down and everything. So it was a ton of money on the vouchers, but it's nice we have a new bus in the fleet. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Fogan. Ms. Vasquez?
The same thing, Mr. Verdugo said everything that I wanted to say too, is to congratulate all the sports, all the people, all the students on a job well done. I really like the fact that in wrestling that there's some girls there because, and my daughter was a wrestler too. I remember her when she was a senior in high school. And I know she pinned a kid in like 15 seconds. So that was fine, yeah. I really enjoy all of that stuff too. So just good job, everybody, and just, the buses and all that stuff. And everything is really cool. We're moving forward, really good.
Mr. Beach?
Yeah, just good job to all our athletes in general. And yeah, the difference now is they have a female state tournament and a female section at the Flowing Wells. So they're going up against other females.
Oh.
Back in the day with Ariana Villascusa and your daughter, they went against
boys.
females, and that was very, very tough for those female wrestlers.
That was tough for the males too, when they lost to the females.
Yes, yes, he quit the team shortly thereafter.
He did, I know.
No, let's just make 2023 a very successful year. Let's keep on working hard. Yep. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kramer?
Yes, I just want to recognize all the wallflowers. Hopefully the wallflowers of the senior class are being recognized, because I know we had a presentation about the counselors. And it's crunch time this next 3 weeks. FAFSA coming up and everything else with scholarships and all that. So hopefully that from whatever last year, that we continue building on that, because that is the important, the next 3 or 4 weeks, certainly for our kids pursuing higher education, no matter where they go. So hopefully that is also being stressed hard, along with our athletic programs as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank all our teachers for being in the trenches every day and working hard, and I wish you a healthy and productive and successful second semester. And thank you for all you do. And I just wanted to throw this out there. I recently read about, I'll bring it back to why it's tangent. I recently read about Rio Verde, a community north of Fountain Hills, just northeast of Scottsdale. And Scottsdale stopped giving them water, delivering water to them. There was a shortage of water, as a consequence of the drought. And so 700, 800 homes were impacted by this, and over 1,000 people. So I just wanted to throw that out there, food for thought, because this is kind of serious and might give us food for thought for the way we go about building things and our plans in the future for our community, and just throw that out there for our entire community. I think it's really important. So food for thought. Yes, sir.
May I take you back to your statement, sir?
You may have the floor. Yes.
Thank you. That we do host the Santa Cruz County Water Advisory Board. It is a state organization, regards to exactly what you're saying. We hosted one. We should be having one coming up in about, I'll say February or March, and certainly open to the public as well, because exactly what you're talking about is right here in Santa Cruz County, talking about those things. So I just want to add that on there. It's a good.
I'm sure the superintendent and your whole will think about that, somewhat lining up. It's not right in your face, but just food for thought.
We hosted the last one.
And I wanted to talk about this biking club. I believe Ms. Enciso has organized a biking club, according to what Mr. Beach told me, so I'll yield the floor to Mr. Beach.
No, it's just an informal biking club, so we're trying to meet every third Sunday of every month, which will be this Sunday. But I know Shannon, you're leaving town, but I'll still ride. So if you want to be part of it, you can give Shannon a number or myself, we can add you to the group. And it's just low-key riding. We're not doing no 40 milers. It'll probably be under 20. So everybody's welcome. Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And that wraps that up. Moving right along. Next subject, board survey for staff.
And this is the board, so the discussion is the board. Survey, the questions that were sent to Angie, are provided. And so again, those are your questions. You, take the board's direction.
Any discussion here, Ms. Fobian?
Yeah, I have real reservations on this being a board survey. I'm just not familiar with how the board fits in to survey staff. A lot of these questions have to do with how do you feel? I thought the relationship was staff to their site administrators. And I don't know that we belong in the middle of that. And that's what this feels like to me. It feels to me like we're going, if there's anything that you want us to help you with, and you don't have to go to anybody else, you just come to the board. And that's not what the board's role is. So I really dislike this document. I am terribly uncomfortable with it. I'm telling anybody that I talk to, since it's optional, don't fill it out. And clearly from the board and not from the administration.
Mr. Verdugo, were Mr. Kramer's questions added to the survey?
No, Mr. Kramer asked for them to be removed.
Yeah, that was my question. I was gonna say, I know that the first time that they gave us a draft, it was 2 pages long and now it's only 1 page, you know. And most of those questions were directed like for the high school and stuff. That was.
Okay, so you have the current draft that was.
This is the one that, I also agree with Miss, if I can have the floor, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I agree with Miss Fabian, because I think that something like this should be done in-house with every school. Because every school is different. We're gonna do this for the whole district. It's not going to, you know, I don't think that we can do an accurate, you know, like you said, you know, it's like, you know, are we trying to pick on somebody here? Are we trying to, how is it that us as a board are gonna help the teachers with the certain questions that were asked? I do feel uncomfortable with it too. I just feel it's kind of like you kind of thing, like, you know, for the principals. Really, that's kind of like how I feel, so.
Okay,
Thank you.
just for the record, it's Miss Fobian because I remember she corrected Mr. Beach one time and.
She's working on it.
I just want to make sure that because once you corrected Mr. Beach, so Ms. Fobian.
Phobian, sorry, Miss Phobian, I apologize.
That's okay.
I've always called you Miss Fabian. I'm sorry.
It's just the Spanish and your
accent on.
Huh?
The Spanish.
It's, I gave you what is it called? An accent. Phobia, okay, sorry.
No problem. I just mentioned it because
Mhm.
you had corrected Mr. Beach one time. So I
Mhm.
just want to make sure everybody knows your name very well. Mr. Beach?
Yeah, when I first were doing this survey, I thought it was for like the principals to give out to their staff so they can get feedback to the principals to the superintendent. So what do they need? Like what support, personal, professional do you need as we move forward in 2023? Top 2 concerns and anything we can do to help our principals succeed. So I know all last year, a lot of it was discipline. We funded the cameras. A lot of it was discipline. We tried to get extra security guards. So that was my take on this as far as this information was to go to the principals. Principals report to the superintendent. Superintendent, this is what we found on the survey. So I didn't feel it was picking on anybody, but some of the questions, you know, as I read, you know, maybe you could reword them, but you know, that was my intent when we first, you know, what concerns do we have that we've been hearing? Give it to the principals, give it to the site, they report back, and then anything we can do to help solve those problems or issues. Yeah, so. And there was a survey prior to, I think, December that was a site survey going out to the parents and I don't know if it's the staff asking very similar questions.
So that's what I had shared with the board previously, just what surveys already go out. So we already have one that asks all those safety, security questions and things that, school climate that goes out to all the parents. And then, the second one is about the site administrator specifically. It's about leadership, and I shared most of those with the board.
Yeah, I saw that and a lot of that covers what I'm seeing here, so.
And that's why I said those are what we use to
Gauge.
to gauge and talk to the principals themselves, and also part of their evaluation to guide us and say, well, this is what's happening. We're hearing at your site. How can we help you get better? So exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I'd like to remind you, Mr. Richa, you brought this up.
Yeah,
and, so that's why we
so that was my
decided
intent.
as a governing board to have this survey.
Yeah.
Mr. Kramer? Are you, excuse me, are you,
No, I'm done.
thank you, Mr. Kramer?
Well, with that said, certainly the redundancy is what you and I, Mr. Verdugo, not you, I want to use that pronoun, Mr. Verdugo, and I discussed in December regarding that, and we did share some back and forth comments on that regarding the surveys. That's why I pulled mine out, because I said, well, if we're doing a survey, although there was a few questions I told you would like to have gotten more. I didn't see it more towards any other school because I didn't even make that survey. I actually purchased it and it was for a whole district. I spent $5 on it, by the way. Yeah, but you can do that. See, you gotta find ways to, anyway, those surveys were done by a different district, but they offered to pay. So it wasn't just one school. It was through their district for elementary, middle school, Azor, that state called it junior high, and then high school. So though I'm not being the author of that, but I did get permission to, as I purchased it. But I pulled those questions out because as we chatted, there's some I would like to put in there more about just the atmosphere and what's going on. School climate, I guess, is not always addressed because those questions are certainly important to teachers, parents, everything else, more into that. I think that what Ms. Fobian is saying is, in her opinion, again, I would not disagree with anybody's opinions because it's their opinions. As a former principal for 15 years, I can say I love the surveys. I liked it when it actually saved me on different occasions for when there were situations, as I remember as a former principal, there are times where you had leaders above you, you may not always agreed with. Those surveys sometimes reflected upon just how good of a principal you are. I don't think it's always about negative, where it's more positive, because those parents, be it when I was at Nogales High School and or Pearson, spoke very highly of myself and the students. So it wasn't really about negative, even though those questions could have been negative. And certainly if I wasn't probably doing my job, you work for me over there, could have easily gone that route. Then it could have been saying, yes, it's negative. It's in the eye of the beholder. So how it's interpreted by the parents, teachers, and how they judge me at those evaluations, certainly then it made whatever to that point is that I was doing my job, or what they thought I was doing my job. So that's, I guess, why evaluations are done in that perspective. Certainly, I know that's what we discussed then, going back to that. I just wanted to explain the whole parameters of how I saw that survey and why I pulled it back because of after Ms. Verdugo shared with me. I don't think any survey is wrong. It's just how you interpret it and how you use it. And if we're gonna look at it and say we're playing gotcha with you guys, well then I think we've got a problem then too. So that's my opinion. I think that evaluations are there to improve upon the instruction for our students. And that's the important thing is, again, and everybody hides behind the kids, but I think that's the whole point of it. And there were some areas, I wasn't a gleaming evaluation for myself, but there were some areas that I found out about myself that I said, maybe I need to correct on that too, as well. So I did learn from those evaluations on who I was as well, and some of my weak areas as a leader. That's what evaluations are supposed to be, or surveys used for. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're very welcome, sir. Well, I appreciate your administrative experience. I always do, Mr. Kramer. A lot of insight. I think the major bone of contention here is whether it's the superintendent or this, or the governing board. But I don't know, I have a lot of faith in Mr. Verdugo. He's not afraid of the devil, you know, he's not afraid to throw something like that out there to find out how teacher morale is. I mean, what are we afraid of? And people are doing what they're supposed to. There shouldn't be any fear or any problems with it. Again, the major bone of contention is who's doing this, right? What role do we play as governing board versus the superintendent? So I'd like to suggest that we have a discussion and take this on at a later time.
And like I said, I can again share the surveys that we already sent out, because I think that, you know, the one that we utilize that talks specifically, goes to the staff about the principals and their leadership. I mean, it's very extensive, and we worked really hard on that to get feedback. And I know that we share that with the principals, and they know that's coming, and they know that's a big conversation that we have annually, you know, with them as part of their evaluation process.
Well, there are only two issues that I have with that, and that's that the governing board's questions are not on there. And I really like the questions that I read that you bought, Mr. Kramer, that you took from other districts. I thought they were excellent questions. So some of those things were not on there, some overlap, of course. And the other one is, the one that really worries me the most, being a former teacher, is anonymity. When a teacher fills something out on a computer, I guarantee you that when they're gonna do it on a computer, they're scared out of their minds. They feel that there'll be retribution in the event that they're completely honest. So that has me worried. But again, the crux of all of this, though, is really that it should be in your hands. So yes, Mr. Kramer?
No, I'm just raising until you get done.
Yes.
Thank you. Another perspective of this too is that Ms. Volbian, you did touch on that about it is the responsibility of the superintendent. I concur. However, I'll know as board members, going back into my first term, we have intervened at times to save principals that were doing a good job because we had superintendents who wanted to get rid of those super principals. And if we wouldn't have intervened, the fate of how this district went about may have been changed. But board members intervened for a few principals at times as well. A flip side of that, where superintendents wanted to get rid of principals, even though those principals were doing a fine job. So with that said, what I'm bringing up is, as what I was saying about myself and what surveys show, sometimes there are situations where the board intervenes for the sake of the district. And we did that. And I don't have to speak any further on that because I think you understand where I'm going with that. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I understand what you're talking about. I don't know that tracks with this survey. I'm a little confused if we designed this to give to the principals. Did we think they couldn't come up with their own survey? And again, it goes back to just administration in general. I don't ever recall Mr. Verdugo saying, great, thank you for creating this survey that I can send out. Because again, he has always created surveys that go out. I think it was a board directive to him that this should be done. And again, that's why I'm extremely sensitive about this. I think it's a bad idea. I think it's a bad idea. I don't like the way the board inserts itself in the administration's role.
Any further discussion? Well, I'd like to make a motion that we table this so that
So
we
moved.
think about it in the future.
Second.
You can motion and second at the same time.
Second,
She thought he was.
if he motion, you get second.
So all in favor? of
Any
tabling?
further discussion?
Oh, any further discussion?
No.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Kramer.
Yes, no, I just certainly have. Certainly, again, I'm gonna go back to that, the surveys and such, where Mr. Verdugo. And before you came on board, Mr. Verdugo, were the surveys the same that you were giving out?
We didn't have any surveys.
Thank
other-
you.
Other than the, one that we gave to parents that was required by,
So things do change. There are paradigm shifts, correct?
and that's why we worked hard to create the survey that you give out
When you say we as a pronoun.
as our team.
Right. And then you ran it through.
And we talked to the principals, because we also do it on ourselves. So we send it out on district leadership as well, so that we get that feedback of how we're doing as well, because we are not exempt from that. And I think you all know how much I appreciate feedback. And so, and that's why I do my goals publicly every June, because part of that is the survey result.
I'm saying that, Mr. Verdugo, because I'm gonna disclose, hopefully you don't mind, our conversations that we may have had, some are still private.
Yeah.
But since we're talking about this, you did say, and you and I agreed, whatever will work on surveys, I know we send these out, but if you guys come up with one, then so be it. Did I, well, paraphrase it correctly?
Correct.
All right. I want for the record that we did have this conversation, so it wasn't like doing it. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're very welcome, sir. Any further discussion? All in favor of tabling this, please say aye. Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you all for your input. Moving right along. Propose and prioritize topics and possible dates and times for future board meeting.
We do have a few members attending both conference on January 27th, so that's prior to our next meeting. Just a reminder that we also do have our staff, a couple of staff members will be attending that participated board member. So Angie and Shannon will be attending. Along with the board members, there is that track at the most that helps them preparing for meetings and so forth. And then the next regular meeting is January 31st, where we will be unveiling our new food truck. As well as it is Board Appreciation Month, and so we will be recognizing the board on that night, January 31st, recognizing you for your contributions. And so each of the sites again will be providing but we also will be providing food truck. And so the food truck will provide food for our celebration that evening. So we'll have it out in front. Ms. Brown is, I know, excited. So I thought, so we'll be working on the menu with that, but I just want to share with that
I know when Mr. Fobian had mentioned the bus earlier, get buying a new bus, maybe we upgraded his idea, you know, for the food truck.
So it is a beautiful food truck, and I think the wrapping and everything and all the work that went in from Shannon to get the naming and everything.
What's the name?
Shannon, you want to share what the name is?
Santa Cruzing food truck.
Santa Cruzing.
Wow, really? Yeah.
And a cruising.
Yeah. So that'll be on the 31st. And then this would be also a time, any discussion or question on changing the start time for the board meeting during this time as well. I know I was asked to get feedback from the principals, and they prefer 5 p.m. If anything, they
Sounds good.
prefer earlier, but 5 p.m. works.
Hey, does anybody have anything that they would like to put on the future board agendas? Ms. Fobian?
I think we need to have either a discussion or a handout of board policies because I think we're just plain unfamiliar with them.
Would you like the B section?
I'm sorry.
The B
Yeah,
section?
B section.
The-
Is this an FYI or?
It would be probably an information discussion, just to review all of the board section policies, the B section. And I think it's also part of our annual with the board ethics and so forth. We can do it at the same time. And we need to have new signatures anyway for that, so we can do it.
Ms. Vasquez,
No, nothing, thank you.
thank you. Mr. Beach?
Nothing.
No, thank you.
And well, what I wanted to discuss is on the future agenda anyway, so we're good. Thank you very much, everybody. Now moving right along, the consent agenda. Any matter on the consent agenda will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed as regular agenda items upon the request of any governing board member. Ms. Fobian, do you have anything you'd like to remove?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Vasquez,
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Beach,
Nothing.
Mr. Kramer?
7, please.
7. Okay, thank you, sir. Do I hear a motion to approve the consented? Oh, excuse me, I had one too, my gosh. Just deny myself your opportunity. I'm end up running this meeting. I'd like to remove number 10. Classified substitute. Would I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda with 7 and 10?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okey dokey, so number 7. Mr. Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Yes, I just wanted to recognize the brown bag bingo ladies and also, again, and I'm gonna do this from now on. Since my hard-earned money from Garrett's, before I go in and buy breakfast, I'm usually $20 and $10 short every time I go in there. It's twice a month at least. But I want to give credit to the Rio Rico Rotary because I know the money they raise for the people that go and buy their tickets outside, like I do at least twice a month. Everybody that should be participating in that. And thank you, Rio Rico Rotary. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any discussion, any further discussion? No? Do I hear a motion to pass number 7 of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I hear a motion, a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okey dokey. And now, Mr. Ramirez, number 10.
I got something really cool for you guys tonight. Out of the ordinary. So Samantha Rafalco, who is gonna be, I hope, our new classified substitute, was my former student, which I'm sure I'll hear from Mr. Kramer about how old I am and how I know everybody, and everybody here was my former student at some point. Dominic smiling over there. So, and Mimi. So at any rate, nobody here on the governing board, God, I'd really be ancient. But Samantha was my former student, and she was one cool and smart cat. One of my strongest German students that we are, I hope will hire. And I brought something. I always did this fruits and vegetables project with my students. And I wanted to show you, give you a little glimpse as to who we're hiring tonight. So here is an example. Here's an example. Let me show it to everybody of really good work by a former student. This is really excellent work. A lot of you would look at this. They had to give descriptions of their fruits and vegetables. And you would look at this and say, wow, this is pretty cool stuff. Show it to my friends over here, colleagues, everybody. So this is
Austrian?
This is really cool, by the way. Get up there for the camera. But they had to describe the fruits and vegetables in German using descriptors. And so they do this, my students, every year. It's one of the projects that they do. So this is one that's pretty nice, right? Everybody would look at this and say, wow, that's cool. What an overachiever. Okay, so
Really great work. And check this out. Now I'm gonna show you Samantha's. Samantha's was the all-time best by far. Here's Samantha's. Maybe Miss Vasquez can help me with this one a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
Come over here, show it to everybody.
That's a 4 on the roof.
For the camera. Good job. So, well done. This is Samantha Falcos, young lady who's going to be our certified substitute. Now, if you notice, I'll show it to the governing board. Look at this. You can take these off and they have magnets on them. So guess who gets to use this now when he teaches? Yours truly, when I teach German.
They can match.
This is Samantha Rafalco's work, and is that awesome or what? You have these magnets and you can use them to teach all the kids.
So how'd you pronounce that? Der Die Wassermelon?
D, which is like la in Spanish. D Wassermelone. So this is Samantha's work. And I'm really proud of her. And when I saw her name there, I was just so excited. I was thrilled. Because this is a really fantastic kid. And I hope we never let her go. And I hope we encourage her to teach German. Because she would make a phenomenal German teacher. Really, she would. So thank you, everybody, for indulging me.
Yes. Right of Rio Rico.
Yes, yes.
Go Hawks. So, do I hear a motion to pass number 10 on the
Can I
consent?
say something?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Any
Uh,
discussion?
Yeah, discussion. I want to discuss also Samantha. Yeah, she does work at the district right now. She works at Calabasas Middle School. She's been there for 3 years. It'll be 3 years. She's been there. She works she does the math. She did the math, and I'm not sure she still does it this time, but she did the math with Miss the teacher from Rio Rico High School. That is now the Marines, with Marines, she was working with Marines and they had a math class together. Plus she does the Spanish class on the computer with the Edgenuity program. That's what she does. And yes, she is amazing. She does really, really good work. And she's always happy. She's a really happy-go-lucky girl and stuff. But yeah, Samantha Rafanto, she was also. So
Thank you.
I was her supervisor.
Any further
Very happy.
discussion? I thank you for bringing that up because I forgot to mention that she's an excellent Spanish speaker as well.
Yes,
So
she
she
is.
speaks
Yes, she
3
is.
languages.
And one of the things is that she does have her degree. She just got her bachelor's degree, but it's in some kind of science or something like that. I think it's like building or some architecture, something to that effect. I'm not sure, but I always encourage her to take classes for, to go into teaching and stuff. So I'm not sure if she did, but I'm really happy.
Encouragement, man.
There we
Maybe a
go.
star for us. Confident of that. Okay, so do I hear a motion to pass number 10 of the consent agenda?
Second.
Okay, I hear a motion in a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Aye. Ninth resounding aye. Okay. Governing board evaluation, meeting evaluation, Mr. Beach.
Mr. President, you did an outstanding job. 2023 is off to a good start. Let's continue.
Thank you, sir. Well, with no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 6:57. Good night and good luck.
Thank you.